everyone, it's time for another commentary podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Duke.
And today, Duke and I are going to chat about and watch Justice League The New Frontier. This is, of course, in honor of the life of Darwyn Cooke. We had a Darwyn Cooke week last week on the channel, and due to some unfortunate technical difficulties, Duke and I weren't able to get this commentary out before, but we are
ironically, it has something to do with
it.
Time Warner. It has something to do with Time Warner, who had a hand in producing this movie.
Oh, wow, okay. So, like a personal connection for Dude.
Yay!
Anyway, so Darwyn Cooke is one of Duke's all-time creators, and he asked me when we initially found out that Darwyn Cooke had cancer, that he asked me if we could go ahead and do this commentary, and then really sadly, just a few hours later, we found out that he had passed. So we decided to bump this up and go ahead and do it right away. And again, we meant to get this up last week, and it just wasn't in the cards. But here we are now, and we're finally going to watch it and talk about it. Duke, this is another technical difficulty thing, but I managed to read over half of the book now, but still wasn't able to get through the last couple issues. I couldn't find it anywhere locally, trying to buy it, and I didn't have time to get it shipped to my house. So I found a website where I was able to read it, and I don't usually do the illegal read or download thing. I have every intention.
Do not promote piracy.
We don't. I have every intention of buying that book, but I was trying to find some way to read it real quick because I've never got my hands on it. I've always wanted to, and you were telling me all kinds of interesting things when we were attempting to do this last week. So I thought I could bring more to the table if I had read it, but at least I have more of a sense of what the style of that book is in comparison, and a lot of the things that they cut out and they homaged and stuff. So I'm more prepared. I'm like 65% more prepared than I was last time.
Well, that's more prepared than I usually am for anything.
I don't know. I think that would make a good T-shirt, dude.
Joke no one else understands.
No, well, he was talking about things he'd want to put on a T-shirt earlier. There, you're caught up. Anyway, well, folks, if you have the movie and you want to watch it along with us as we provide you a commentary that is also a podcast, grab your DVD, your Blu-ray, however you want to watch it, get it past all the menus to timestamp 0, and get ready to press play as soon as I say now. If you want to listen to us chat at you while you're working in your kitchen doing the dishes or putting together a wooden birdhouse, feel free to listen to it without the movie, and we'll do our level best to provide some context about what we're talking about. Duke, especially, is going to also be kind of talking about the graphic novel and some of the comparisons between the two things simultaneously. We're not going to be putting out a special video about that right now anytime soon, although Duke, I could see down the line maybe doing a separate thing on that. I might do that, or maybe bring you in for it.
It deserves a big discussion because I think it's one of the most important graphic novels in the last few decades.
Yeah, and one of the lesser talked about. And like I said, it's weird how hard it is to get my hands on it. Like, I went to a convention over the weekend and couldn't find it. And
that should be fixed soon, because I know Amazon, like, this was before Cooke passed, but I know Amazon had the soft cover that collects the entirety of it up for pre-order, so that should be fixed soon.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize they were re-releasing it. Was it never in paperback before?
It was in 2 paperbacks. That's what I have. I think last year they put out a nice, like, standard hardcover that has the original issues and a special one-shot that Cooke worked on to tie in with this movie.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't even know that existed. Is that the comic that came with the deluxe edition?
No, you could buy it at shops, I believe.
Oh, okay, because I think there were some, correct me if I'm wrong about this, I think there were some
I know what you're talking
editions
about.
that had maybe but see, I thought that was just the original #1.
No, it is the original #1. It was like a mini-sized version back when they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, you remember? You never see that anymore. You also, in the 80s, used to see that in cereal boxes.
Yes. I have a used bookstore in town that had a few of those, and they had to finally say, we're just going to throw these out. No one wants them.
I have those from the Untold Legend of Batman.
Nice.
Anyway, but I digress. Let's go ahead and get into the movie, shall we? We're gonna jump right into it and talk about Justice League: The New Frontier. Everybody, please press play right now.
So, where do we start with this? Because this is a case of you need to eat an elephant, but where do you start with the first bite?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that this was one of the earlier movies that I reviewed on Superhero Rewind, and back when I was doing much more kind of overview videos.
Well, back when
And
you had to.
yeah, that too. And I didn't spend nearly enough time on this, and this is a thing I could very easily see myself eventually going back to and revisiting. I had a much different experience rewatching it last week in preparation for this, Duke, than I had before, and there's a lot more going on in this than I ever even realized. I think part of it is just I've read a lot more comics since then and stuff, so I picked up on more things with particular characters that I was not aware of, but also just a lot of thematic and character stuff that resonated with me now. I guess I've lived more life, and it resonates with me in a way that it didn't before.
I would say I had that same experience because when I first saw this movie and then subsequently read the book, I had just gotten really into comics. In fact, I kind of credit this line of movies with getting me into comics.
Wow.
Because because I found out what graphic novels were from it. And then I, went to my local bookstore and picked up some, and now I have 2 full bookshelves that are staring at me right now that are massive, and people get jealous of me every time I show them off. Years of comic collecting, people.
This is a story that is all about, optimism versus pessimism, and what of course, the human condition is, and whether or not people can get along, and what it would be that would pull those people together. I like that with that idea, our villain is called the Center. This kind of force of nature thing that attacks the very center of what we are as people, and makes us ask the question as to whether or not we really have one. And this idea of us learning about that from a book that's called The Last Story, that's in a movie, and this is true of the book too, although that's much more front end center. At the beginning of this, with
someone get the drums out.
with the movie version, it's all about the kind of optimism of the period versus now, and it's very much a retrospective kind of thing where it's very much intended for the people that are watching it in our present day, even as a period piece going back. But that's a really provocative image, the idea with starting what is, in the movie version, a origin story for the Justice League with a thing called The Last Story. I think is a really neat place to begin.
And it cuts to the chase of things, because I don't know if you got this from what you read of the book, but the thing I appreciate about the movie is it's telling the same story, but the approach they had to go with the movie was they had to make it feel more like a traditional narrative as opposed to the book, which was more about just sort of looking at everything in the period and giving it its own spotlight, even if it's like the main plot or even some just kind of weird subplot, like little one-shot stories within the story, which of course may not really appear full on in the movie. They are more or less reduced to cameos for time reasons, because that's always been the difficulty with these animated movies, is they can only do so much with the time they're given.
And yet it makes the movie version a much more cohesive and streamlined piece. I don't even know, and again, not to continue to harp on this over and over again, but I haven't read the last 2 issues, but having read the majority of it, it would be difficult to call one even a better experience over the other.
They're different experiences.
It's one of the absolute best examples I've ever seen of adaptation from one medium to another medium. You can't watch this and say you've read the book, but you do have not even just the crux of that story. I mean, like, it's truncated in the sense that all of the stuff that's in that book isn't here, but the ideas and the characterizations are not truncated in the sense that you only get like slight representations of them.
Yeah.
This is very much a cohesive piece, and you would not have to read the book to appreciate this movie. I didn't feel the need to read it when I reviewed it. When I reviewed the film on Rewind, and it's all those homages are things that you wouldn't even recognize as being homages, like they're for someone else. They just feel like
they're not shouting at you saying this is from the book. They're
no,
just there.
They're just background things that help to create this multi-layered, really really complex, unique version of this period DC universe. The book is incredibly expansive in its scope. What an ambitious piece of work. We're talking like Watchmen level ambitious.
I agree with that entirely. Especially because I like New Frontier more than Watchmen personally.
This is a scene that is handled remarkably well in the movie version and immediately gives us the tone of what this thing is, and it immediately warrants the PG-13 thing, and this is a thing that is for adults. However, it hit me in a place in the book in a way it did not in the movie.
Explain to me how so.
Well, the thing they left out that I totally understand, why it's not here. But probably, I mean, just time. But we move on a little bit farther when he's in the plane after this scene. We're talking about Hal Jordan here, where so he's trying to say that the war is over in Vietnamese.
Yes, that is true.
on the plane, there's this added thing that you don't get here, where he finally remembers it. He's trying to recollect the language, and it's not coming to him. And like seconds or moments later, he's on the plane, and it's all he can say. He says it over and over and over again. And if only those words had come to him, he wouldn't have had to kill that guy to survive. What I love about that I wish was somehow more present in the film version, Duke, is that classic Superman idea, and of course that's present with most of these like Justice Society characters and 50s DC characters also, is there's always another way, and he had one and he just couldn't get there, and that makes it a lot more heart-wrenching.
Mm-hmm. Because as you go on the book, that thought's still in the back of his head for probably, obviously for the story, and probably be for the rest of his life, because those kinds of decisions haunt you.
Now, I don't want to compare these things too much to say, without that, the movie doesn't work. I didn't know it was there in the first place. And
no. It's one of those things where
I really liked Hal Jordan as a character, but I think I do have more of an appreciation of what this version of him is all about because of some scenes like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we talked over the initial scene of Martian Manhunter, but when he's more prominent again, we'll bring him back up.
Well, feel free to go ahead and mention the thing with the blanket, because by contrast, that's an added thing that I really liked being put there.
Yeah, and I think Cooke himself said he really liked how that scene worked, because you basically sum up the entire character with that scene. He gets dragged from his home planet, the last of his kind, and it was a complete and total accident, and an innocent man died because of it, and first thing he does before he, walks away, he just doesn't leave the body there. He has enough respect for life to at least give him something of a burial, putting the jacket over him and giving the man respect. Treating him, as weird as this sounds, treating him like a human being.
Yeah, all life is precious, and that's a that's the major thematic crux of this piece. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the movie, most of our characters have come to that conclusion themselves and are able to put their politics and other personal feelings aside in order to just help humanity as a species survive. And that's of course the point of the Hal Jordan scene. Once again, in the movie version, they look more like contrasting scenes where you have a guy who has to kill and a guy who is saddened to see someone die, and it's not really his fault that it happened. But you'd be able to piece those together thematically more if you knew just how hard that was for Hal Jordan from the outset.
And it's good to get those two figured out early, because they're honest. I think they're probably the main characters, at least a heavy focus of the story is on the both of them. And a little more to the Flash, though I think Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter probably have the biggest focus out of everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is fine because, well, I think every character deserves some spotlight, but especially Martian Manhunter because everyone still looks at him very much as a B-list character, even though he's a founding member of the Justice League and all that.
Well, and the Trinity in this are these kind of auxiliary, for the sake of the story, background characters that are seen as larger than life, like we tend to look at them.
And it's kind of a point because the reason why those three feel so minimal as they do is this is supposed to represent the Silver Age coming out and how outside of those three characters, all the other superheroes, in comic form were being pushed away because, we were going through our own problems with superhero comics at the time, Wentworth and all that. And those three were the only real ones that survived the Purge, even though it, took a lot of alterations and you had to make them work in society.
Yeah, that's a really good point from a historical perspective. And
it's also the reason I always use for anyone who still complains that this movie doesn't have enough Batman in it, Steve. Okay, to be fair, I'm addressing 2012, Steve.
Yeah, who knows what 2016, Steve?
2016, Steve, I know appreciates it now. But back then, I just remember having this conversation with him where he sent me like a compilation of all of Batman's screen time in this movie and acting like it's so criminal. He gets 5 minutes of screen time.
Wow. Yeah, it's not really about him. He's in
the movie more than he is in the book.
He's integral, yeah, and obviously there's commercial reasons for that. He's integral to this story in obviously his relationship with Martian Manhunter, with the fact that they're both detectives. Martian Manhunter is the ideal. He's trying to be like the ideal 50s, TV detective who doesn't really exist.
Like the scene with him in the television, which I love. I think it's subtle and hilarious.
Batman is this more real world hardened vigilante detective. Of course, naturally.
He's really kind of the embodiment of what's left of the vigilante movement that everyone's afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, he's better than a lot of those people, but is still really super cynical and with good reason, because he was pushed out by McCarthyism. Mm-hmm. And so you have Superman and Wonder Woman who are both part of the government state that is allowing those superheroes to still function. And Superman is not thrown under the bus here. He's not Dr. Manhattan.
He's not even Superman in Dark Knight Returns.
No, definitely not. He's the guy who's realizing by the end that people need to be allowed to do the right thing, and that by not letting these other characters help protect people because of politics, we're gonna lose ourselves. And he's realizing that the only people besides him that are there, i.e. Wonder Woman, are becoming or are kind of being allowed to do awful things in the name of justice in the American way. And she's and like, I don't know if I would go so far as to say she's thrown under the bus, because of course she gets she gets redeemed by the end, I think.
Well, her Wonder Woman story in this movie is basically, who is she really fighting for? Is she fighting for her people in Themyscira or for America? And does she want to fight with them for America? It's how would you define it? Like an identity crisis of some sort?
I'd say so.
I'm distracted because Grant Morrison's robbing a casino right now.
Frozen Grant Morrison.
And that's barely me making a joke, because he is based off Grant Morrison in this.
This was the thing I was surprised to see in the book when I read that. I kind of figured they added this just so they'd get a superhero in there, a supervillain in there, just because of the way Darwyn Cooke talks about it in his commentary. But that was the thing that was actually in the book.
He said this in an interview once. I think he pointed out that Captain Cold, and then technically Gorilla Grodd, though we know it's not actually Gorilla Grodd, he pops him in there because he felt that the Flash is probably one of the second best example of having the most memorable villains.
Oh wow!
Like so much so that because whenever you see the Flash, it's not just Captain Cold fighting him. Half the time, it's all the rogues.
You're right. Yeah.
Because he does have a very memorable cast of villains.
Yeah, if you've ever actually read them, and that's the thing is that before, recently with the TV show and stuff, I think a lot of people didn't know his Rogues Gallery just because he obviously hadn't yet been featured real prominently in other media yet.
But if you know comics, then you would know that it's his number one villain isn't any of the single rogues. It's all of them.
It's all right, yeah. I think we should address the fact that this is a movie that looks a lot different than it probably would be if you were to adapt the same material today.
How so? Oh, well, okay. They probably would give Flash and Green Arrow more screen time.
Because of characters that have become really prominent that weren't really known about much back then. It's really interesting going back to this because this was put out in.
We just brought it up with Batman a minute ago too. They had to figure out how to put him in the movie more.
Now, I would make the case that would still happen.
Yes.
But I mean, like we still rely really heavily on Batman, and I think we're gonna continue to see that a lot with the DC live action films, and we continue to see that with these direct to video animated movies. But going back and looking at a movie like this, before some of those characters were more prominent, and putting myself back in the mindset where I was when I did, this is what, 2008, when I didn't remember, or when I didn't know these characters very well. I didn't have amnesia, I just didn't know them.
I was in high school, I didn't have the time to know them.
It's kind of interesting because they're kind of portrayed like some of these are characters that either certain, a lot of people watching it might not know, or I bet you never thought you'd see this character animated like this. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that, and these movies have continued to do that. It seems like they've had a checklist, and they've been trying to get certain characters that they have rarely or ever gotten to animate. Keeping in mind that this is primarily still the same team that was working on all the DC animated universe stuff before we got to Flashpoint and the 52 stuff that we're doing now.
Yep.
Just for anybody that doesn't know that.
We're trying to get you people. We're trying to give you all a history lesson. It's hard.
It's really hard.
It doesn't help that literally today the universe is partially being rebooted. So
yeah, that's right. Today,
to date this video.
Yeah, this is the Wednesday that Rebirth #1 came out.
Yep.
With the big Mind Freak thing at the end that everybody's talking about right now. So that bomb scene reminds me a little bit of that Justice League Unlimited episode with the Joker.
Oh yeah,
where he plants bombs everywhere and Flash has to run off and grab them all.
Well, it's fun to do that with the Flash. Just in general. He is the perfect hero to force on wild goose chases.
A lot of absolute brilliant choices for casting in this movie, for voice casting. This is the kind of voice cast that we used to see a lot with these early movies, and that every now and again we'll get a really awesome recognizable voice that maybe hasn't done this kind of voice work before. Nothing against Baker and those guys that get a lot of roles and are fantastic at what they do, but it's neat sometimes to see somebody that you usually see in live action that actually would be really good for a voice role. And I don't mean stunt casting. I just mean in a lot of these things are certainly not stunt casting. Aren't any bigger level celebrities than people that you would see in just on regular everyday TV shows. But David Boreanaz as Hal Jordan, that is an inspired choice. It's recognizable. If you know him, it sounds like David Boreanaz. He's not putting on a voice, but it never occurred to me just how close that vocal timbre is to a lot of those kinds of serial heroes from that period.
Yes.
He's totally right for that.
And I will say this: I feel like this movie had Boreanaz. I think at this point when the movie came out, I think he was talked about as he would be great in a Green Lantern movie. But I think the best one that fits that bill is Lucy Lawless. I think she's the best casting in this entire movie.
Yeah, and I think Lucy Lawless is, for me, the definitive choice for Wonder Woman, and would have been for a live-action movie also. And I think a lot of people were saying that in the 90s. I mean, like I can't imagine that comic fans who really liked Wonder Woman didn't watch one episode of Xena and go, holy crap, that's Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
That's who it ought to be. Especially because she was a Greek mythology character.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that Xena has a lot in common with Wonder Woman necessarily, but they both come out of that Greek myth tradition.
They tick a lot of the same boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but definitely the major ones.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman wasn't
Wonder Woman didn't hang out with Kevin Sorbo.
No, well, I was just gonna say she didn't have to be redeemed for being a warlord that went around and set fire to villages and stuff.
I thought that was the whole crux of the New 52.
She didn't start as a villain. I didn't read that stuff.
I know. I'm just making jokes because I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that she wasn't a warlord goddess person.
I wouldn't put past anyone.
Okay, so am I wrong about this? Has Neil? Because I haven't. It's been a while since I watched one of the animated Green Lantern movies, and I haven't watched the other one. Has Neil Patrick Harris not also voiced Green Lantern?
No, he hasn't.
Oh, I thought he had.
Nope. You're thinking Nathan Fillion.
Oh, Nathan Fillion has. Yeah, that's right.
Because
I knew that.
Voiced him in Emerald Knights, and then
that's right.
He was in Flashpoint.
Now we're all caught up.
I don't follow that line anymore since it went to a continuity. So I don't know if when he pops up, does he still voice him or not?
I don't think so. I also think this guy is inspired as Batman.
Oh, I love him as Batman.
It is a Batman that takes some getting used to, but that's what's so wonderful about it, is that the Batman of this period, especially if it was a really serious Batman, because that's the thing about like 50s Batman wasn't serious anymore. Like that's when we were getting into like space
50s Batman was basically just
Batman.
The 60s Batman.
Yeah, and so what they've done with this is they've basically taken 1938 or 39 Batman, and they've just kind of updated him right into the 50s. He's got the purple gloves and everything. It's fantastic.
Yes. Also, this scene is creepy as all heck.
It is, and this is one of the scenes that is kind of right out of the comic. There's not much different here at all. And that shot that we'll see here in a second with the main religious zealot cult guy upside down with the beard and a V is like exactly the same shot that it is in the comic.
I think they basically... Cooke put it as they took his comic, and for a lot of the scenes, they just pretty much looked at those as storyboards, and he was really impressed how they, figured out how to make the motion go to bit. Like, they treated his book like it was just the static screenshot.
Yeah, this is the movie that we really ought to be going back to every time we try to adapt something that is longer and more complex than you'd think you could get away with.
And so visually interesting, too.
And B, a thing that you might want to attempt to take the art from the book and translate it into animation. This is hands down the best at that these have ever gotten to. And this is only the second of them.
And it helps that Cooke had a lot of experience with these people all throughout the DCAU.
Yeah, and that he was involved.
He had a similar style that worked with how they were doing things, so it only makes sense that
that's true. His style was similar to Batman the Animated Series, and so...
Also, can I say something?
Yeah.
We're not at the scene anymore, but you know what I love about the part where the cult guy is on his back and the center's talking?
Yeah.
I love how they colored his teeth.
Yeah.
Like, just that nice bit of pink to show that he's bleeding. I don't know why, but I like that detail. I love that they would go to that amount of detail for this.
Once again, I just want to provide context for people that aren't familiar, because I certainly wasn't until recently. Darwyn Cooke had a history in animation and was directly involved in this movie, and that's a thing that it has in common with the other movie that people point to as one of, if not the best of these, which of course is Under the Red Hood, where the guy who wrote the thing comes back and works on the adaptation and tries to improve upon it if he can.
Yes.
The difference is, this was a brilliant story, and that was a story that needed work and got it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad I got it because I love Under the Red
Me
Hood.
too. It's wonderful. Yeah. But
And
really
and
cool
right
that
now we're watching Ladies Man Hal Jordan
That's right. There he goes.
wearing a suit that makes it look like he's about to participate in the wacky races.
I was about to make that exact same joke.
Great minds think alike, sir.
That guy looks like he's about to jump into a car with Johnny Quest sitting in his sidecar.
Come on, Future Quest. You need these ideas.
I don't. This may have been an oversight, but I think it was probably on purpose. This is just a super tiny little detail. I like that almost everywhere the center is spelled with an R-E, but that is an incredibly American person writing the word center, so he spells it with an E-R.
Yes.
And the center is getting into people's minds, and they're acting like they would, except... Yeah, like their personalities are still intact, even though the center is driving them crazy. So that's just a neat little detail, I think. Yep. Giving the center a voice was also a really smart idea. Again, if you haven't read the graphic novel, the center is brought up the very first time in the religious zealot scene. Like, you don't even know.
Yeah, he's not really like another thing about the movie is the movie kind of made him more of an actual villain than like an unseen. I think I made this analogy when we tried to do this commentary. In the book, he's more like the Borg, and in this, they tried to at least follow the same idea as the Borg Queen of a central villain, even though they don't have a person speaking, like a single character. You know what I mean? They try to make it an actual villain.
No, that's a really good analogy.
Good, because I barely explained it.
No, I totally get what you're saying. It just gives it a voice and kind of a face. I mean, not like the Borg Queen.
More of a prominence
than
just a vague force that comes in.
Yeah, and that's necessary for a more condensed thing that you're trying to put in a traditional 3-act formula.
And in a movie that's 70 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And it totally works. If you tried to adapt the book more wholesale, you would have had to have done, and you still couldn't have done it exactly the way it was, I don't think, and make it a thing that was very easily followable, unless you made it like, because that's in 6 issues. And so, with a comic book structure, each individual issue doesn't have exactly a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it has a logical place that it ends. That kind of serialized storytelling, we don't really do anyplace else exactly the way we do it in comics. It's sort of like television. If you made this a TV miniseries, you could do it that way. But that would be the only way to do it. So, like, the only other thing I could see, Duke, would be to kind of give everybody a completely separate vignette without crossing them very much, and then having them all come together at the end. But even that would still probably have to be a miniseries before it was a movie.
It is kind of amazing looking at the book that they said, let's make it into a movie, but I'm glad it pulled up. Because let's look at another example. All-Star Superman, exactly I think it's okay, but it doesn't pull it off the same way.
No, it doesn't. And part of what makes that hard, if you're familiar with the material, and maybe that's a movie I'd like better if I didn't know the material. This is
I agree with that statement.
This is one I think I like even more, having read some of the book. Except that I'm pretty sure I like the book more. But that's in the same way you usually when you like with a novel, if you know a novel really well, usually with a really good movie, you're still like, the novel's better than the movie because it's able to build on more stuff and show you more things. Yeah, okay, but does the movie stand on its own really well? Yes, it does, certainly. But I was making some kind of a point.
It's distracting because we have 2 deep-voiced gentlemen now.
That's right. And I just want to listen to them talk. Yeah. With All-Star Superman,
soothing, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is. All-Star Superman was a thing that if you know the material, it gets really jarring when it's doing the issues pretty much straight up and chronologically, and then all of a sudden just like skips 2 in a row. Yeah.
It does feel like there's something missing somehow.
That was absolutely bizarre. This is probably my favorite version of Martian Manhunter to date.
I think I agree with that because this story gets him down to a T. Even though they omitted my favorite scene from the book, where he goes to a movie theater.
Oh yeah, that's great.
um, well, I'll explain it though. He goes to a movie theater, just to be like a real human, and it's like a cheesy sci-fi movie, and he's laughing at the goofy effects.
Yeah,
and
he's
everyone's
laughing and
looking at
nobody
him
else.
like he's a crazy
No,
person.
he's not just laughing at the effects. Importantly, he's laughing at the way people are acting.
Yeah, that too.
And
Just,
he
I
thinks
love that scene. So
he thinks it's supposed to be a comedy, and it turns out that it's not. But I also love the contrast of he thinks that the way cops and private detectives talk in the movies is the way they do in real life, and people point out how cheesy he's being.
He does the first mistake we all do is we assume we've seen a few TV shows and we know how the world works.
Yeah, and I think that's just a wonderful commentary on modern culture, and it seems like exactly what would happen if an alien suddenly showed up, or if somebody was like brought up outside of our culture and then suddenly was fit in our culture. And you'd look at that box that's on all the time that seems to be telling you what the world is like and what the news is, and I mean, like, what the world is like through news and stuff, and then you go out in the real world and it's not exactly like that, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's no real crash course in life. You kind of have to figure it out.
Well, and of course part of the commentary is also that TV isn't there for your benefit as it is as much for the people that are trying to make money selling you things.
Exactly.
But I like how subtly that's handled. It's great. We should talk about the omission.
Hi, Jim Gordon. Bye, Jim Gordon.
Who kind of also has more of a cameo role in the book, but he stands around a lot longer.
I mean, Bruce Wayne, as Bruce Wayne, Batman shows up in the casino bit.
Oh, yeah.
Him and Catwoman.
We should talk about the fact that the Batman vs. Superman scene is omitted from this movie.
Yes. And what's funny is they bring that whole idea up in that special I talked about.
Oh, do
Not
they?
because
Okay.
it was kind of the movie, but just how Superman and Batman would operate in this world in this period.
A part of me wishes it was still here. Somewhat for obvious reasons, just because it's really well handled in the book, and like watching it now with what's been going on lately with the Batman vs Superman idea, I kind of wish it was here because it's a really cool version of it. And not having it somewhat, but again, I like that even though Batman is in more of this than he is the graphic novel, it does help to put the spotlight on who our real central characters are. So, I mean, I like that. But, Duke, it's somewhat, I hate to say this, it somewhat deflates the scene. Again, now that I've seen the graphic novel, it didn't before that, that we just had a second ago, where John Jones, or where Batman says to John Jones, I have a sliver of meteorite to stop the one from Metropolis. In the subtle difference is that in the graphic novel, he says that he had that and he's used it already, and that makes it more threatening because it could be an empty threat from John's perspective.
But
now,
because of how it goes in the book, we know he has it for sure.
Yeah, we know for sure that happened. It's I don't know if it's public knowledge, but he seems to believe him.
And now a press conference from Batman. I have kryptonite. This is this public service announcement.
That's not what I mean. I just don't know if the fight was public. But anyway, again, it's not a big deal.
Either way, I still like how the scene's played in both.
I'm glad it's still there. We could have easily cut it out
because knowing Batman, you have to know he has it.
Yeah. Well, and that is the most important thing about Batman, is that he's not trusting them because they're aliens, but then again, he's also not trusting anybody.
Yes. And plus, either way, yeah, sure, he could say he doesn't have to. Plus, here's another thing. Martian Manhunter could just read Batman's mind and say, yeah, he has it. He's telling the truth.
Oh, well, that's a really good point you're making.
And also, he knows I can, die for being too close to candles, so he's not bluffing.
One of my very favorite things aesthetically, and in putting this back in this period, is getting to see the low-tech, or lower, low-tech by our standards, Batcave with the microfiche.
And this was something that they wanted to do in the movie because it's not in the book.
Such a cool thing they added, though.
Because they really wanted to have an opportunity just to design a this era's Batcave, which it is cool to look at, so I don't blame them.
That's fair enough. One thing I'll criticize, this is a tiny note, is that it is, on first viewing, a little bit awkward to have John Jones say, "I'm going home," and then the next scene, you see him walk into the Batcave.
I'm home.
It's a little awkward. Like we know very quickly what's going on. He's decided to stop off and say something to Batman first, and so that we have an explanation for that we're getting right here. Too much mindless conformity. It's not the way he thought it was, and he doesn't know if there's anything worthwhile about these humans for him to stay here, because he doesn't have to stay here. And I love this about, and this is why I like this version so much. He's only sticking around because he loves the culture, and he thinks there's potential for these people. And it's not like this big hope to save them or anything. He just wants to be part of them. I don't think he has any big grand plan to save them.
Superman story.
Say it again.
It's his own version of the Superman story in a way. He's not necessarily here to be its protector. He's just here because he has learned to like and respect these people.
Yeah, and then the protecting thing would come naturally as time went on, where you have the ability and then the responsibility. You think to help people. Yeah, exactly. Something else that I question is why he becomes a police detective as opposed to a private detective, and wouldn't becoming a private detective be a lot easier with no experience and no evidence of who you are, unless he's mind controlling people?
I think I always kind of viewed it as a case of he's using his powers to, like, I don't know how the best way to describe it, like, how do I do this? I'll just read this guy's mind and then I'll know how to do it and just pick it up naturally. Like, is
this the Martian Manhunter that's able to, can he only wipe memories or only read them, or can he like make people do what he wants to? Because
that is something that's always been vague about his power set.
And different, it's just like kryptonite. Like everybody that deals with it has a different, and with like the
it's just the problem when you're handling an alien character is you don't know where to stop and where to start.
Now, I will say that not that I've read everything Martian Manhunter, and there's a lot of stuff I've not read, but of what I've looked at, I think so far Supergirl, the TV show, has the best handle on that, where we actually have like a set of rules and we know exactly what he can do and what he can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, well, actually, it's not even quite that. It's that he's not sure, how far he can go with things, and so he's like constantly feeling it out. And I like that take on it a lot. Where like
I need to catch up on that show.
I hadn't seen that before. Where like he's got to be careful with wiping memories because he could go too far, and he's done that before. And
yes.
And so then he feels really guilty for accidentally ruining somebody's life, which is the reason that he tries not to use his powers. But then naturally, like always, he gets stuck, having to do that. Anyway,
and now Hal Jordan is regretting having his role changed from the book in this, because he's not in this scene in the book.
No, he doesn't get to go up. But you know what? It gives them one more opportunity for him to say outstanding.
That too. That, and they just were like, well, we can't really fit the original Suicide Squad in. Put Hal in there. Yeah,
there are, because importantly, the title of the book is DC: The New Frontier.
Yeah,
and this is
they kind of had to make it more a Justice League story in the movie.
Yeah, although
not to say it's not, it's just that it's
to their
DC
credit,
Universe story.
It doesn't really become a Justice League thing until the very end, and the way that's handled is classy and surprisingly natural. And if you didn't know the book wasn't a Justice League thing, it doesn't feel tacked on. It is tacked on, but it's tacked on really gracefully.
Yes.
And so when you look at the book, as Duke was saying earlier, it's just this big sprawling, world, and it's all about scope, and so all kinds of things that are either just mentioned here or we see for briefly, or we don't even deal with at all. Like, I'm surprised the Blackhawks made it in, to be perfectly honest with you. But
then again, I only think they got in because, well, we could have planes in there, so we'll keep them there.
But that was cool because it's not a thing that we'd really seen animated before, I don't think.
No, and you really haven't.
Unless Unlimited did it somewhere, and I don't know about it.
Unlimited did not with them, but they did an episode where you meet like the last remaining Blackhawk, and
oh, okay.
It's the one where they're on that cool 50s island full of weird old 50 technology.
But yeah, like microfish. Oh, but like Suicide Squad.
You just love saying that word, don't you?
Yes I do. The Suicide Squad doesn't make it into this, and the Challengers are briefly there, but are like the Challengers are this scene in the book, right?
No.
Am I
in the book the
wrong?
Challenger? No, it's just the Suicide Squad.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I forget what
the Challengers
they do something.
Honestly, they're not really like Ace. Like just like in the movie, Ace is the only one who gets any real.
Oh, really? Okay.
Screen time because there's a relationship with Hal, and then at the end they're there to fight because like a lot of other characters, the rest.
Okay, so naturally we had some technical issues, so I was probably
because it's me.
I was probably in mid-sentence, so I don't know what I was talking about, but
remember everyone, when you decide to explore a career in internet, make sure you have good internet.
That's good advice
from a guy in Nebraska.
No, I remember now what I was about to say before. Duke, one of the things that's important to keep in mind about this, and one of the reasons that I think these characters are so relatable and such fresh versions, is that our two main characters, as you were discussing earlier, are people before they're superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Like Hal Jordan, as we kind of looked at for the whole rocket scene, he finally gets to live his dream of being someone who travels through the sky, do something big. Space travel was a huge deal back then, and it sadly isn't now.
It's a really good point. It's really cool to make your Green Lantern a guy who always wanted to go into space and wants that adventurous lifestyle and wants to be an astronaut, and then doesn't, and then bites off more than he can chew when he finally, becomes Green Lantern. And when I say these characters are people first, we've seen plenty of origin stories where we have to hang out with people for a long time before they finally, become the characters that we're familiar with. But I'm not praising that. I'm praising the fact that I care about them before they put costumes on. Green Lantern, Hal Jordan becoming a Green Lantern is a huge money moment in this, and they really earn that. When he finally gets to put that on, it's such an exciting moment for him, and it's not...
I actually think the way they handle him becoming Green Lantern for the first time, I like it better in the movie than the book. Because as nice of a scene as it is, it kind of takes the excitement out of it. Because in the book, when he first gets the ring, he uses it and toys around with it like we would all do.
Yeah.
Naturally. But I do think for the sake of pacing and storytelling, I love that they save it for the big moment.
Well, and here he doesn't have time to do that. I mean, it pretty much happens in the middle.
Literally, there's not enough runtime.
Well, but I just mean like the center is about to destroy everything.
That was a joke.
He's got to do something.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also like that it's not convenient. I don't know if it's this way in the book, but it was really smart to have the center be the thing that knocks Abensur off course like that.
I don't think so.
I like that idea a lot.
Yes.
I mean, it is convenient that guy just happens to have the thing that can give Hal Jordan the life he's always wanted.
Mm-hmm. Also, every time I watch this scene, I like to imagine this is going through Cap's, not your head, through Hal's head. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. I don't know what's happening.
I'm somewhere where I don't know where I am.
I don't like change. Anyway, sorry.
He's in a lot of positions that make him seem like he's in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean,
again, I'm waiting for him to meet Birdman.
Right? I mean, how many of those cartoons? Well, someday he'll meet Hawkman, I'm sure, and then.
Yeah, and then he'll regret it because he's Hawkman. I'm sorry, but it's just a natural state of things. Hawkman is a jerk to everybody. I mean, Hawkeye could be a jerk too, but we're not different continuity. You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's...
Sorry, it's just that when you go quiet with all these technical difficulties, it makes me worry.
No, that's cool. I was just thinking about how Abensur looks a little bit like the Red Skull.
Yeah. They didn't do anything to make him look too alien besides the eyes and the skin in this, which I appreciate. You don't have to necessarily do that.
Yeah, but he has a skull face.
Yes, he does. And I'm waiting for him to shout German at Hal.
What, by the power of the Grayskull in German?
Yes. Why not? Tell
But
me
hey,
what-
I don't want to sound like racist against skull faces. Like, I don't have any problem with the fact that he's a skull face. I'm just saying that he reminded me a little bit
Oh,
of...
Skullface viewers right now are so mad.
Yeah, no, I've offended the skull face people. Sorry about that.
They have a lot to go through, Cap. Come on.
See, the nice thing about having a skull face is that you'd never look like you aged.
No.
Like, there'd be nothing to, denote the passage
All
of
you
time.
really need to do is bleach your skull face every once in a while. Other than that, you're fine.
Yeah, that's right. Unless, of course...
You're going for a more distinguished skull face look.
Unless, of course, like, that red color is like, what you want to look like, and then the bleach, like, scraped it off. Like, you wouldn't want that to happen. Then you might be an actual skull face.
Yes, that is true.
Then
What
you'd
we're
just be a
saying is,
skull.
to all our skull face viewers out there, you do you.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
What did we just talk about?
I don't know. I think we
What
got a whole
was
2
that
minutes out of
conversation?
Skullface Abensur. This guy's about to die, and we're making fun of his skull
How
face.
do we know that that's his actual face? Maybe crashing did something horrible to his face.
That's possible, but conveniently it didn't affect his clothes.
No, it was
Or
a
anything.
face-only injury. What is wrong with us?
I don't know. Getting to
R.I.P.
see
Darwyn
classic,
Cooke.
getting to see classic Golden Age Robin again is really cool.
Yes, even if it's just for this one scene.
That's fine. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with it.
It goes with the whole point, like they're about to address here, is because a big part of the earlier scene with the cult was he scared the crap out of that child.
Oh yeah.
And this was, and both in the book and the movie, this is them subtly going towards that because obviously he had to change. Batman had to change his look eventually to be more kid friendly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I love the line. It's a good, simple line. I'm out to scare criminals, not children.
Yeah.
I just love subtle things like that.
Well, and that just in traditional Batman, because obviously there's a lot of different versions of that character, but traditionally that would be the sort of thing that makes it easier for Batman and Superman to get along.
Yes.
Like, it isn't that he's actually necessarily as dark and scary as he seems. It's that that's a method, and you can argue about the method, but his heart's in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the twisted, he might be as psychotic as his villain's Batman.
No. Which, I'm not a big fan of that.
I think you can, often make the case that Batman is that way to some degree just because of his, obsession with going out and hitting criminals in the face after his parents die. And then the whole,
I hate to interrupt you, but I love this visual. I love this visual.
Me too. It's one of my favorite things in the movie. I think the blood that outlines, and again, another thing that makes this really earn its PG-13, it's not doing this to be shocking. This is haunting.
Yes. And it gets the point across that this is serious.
Yeah.
It's not gratuitous. It's not there just to be there. It's there to illustrate a point.
And I like that it happens in this case. I like that it happens to Wonder Woman because it drives the point home for her that there are more important things than revenge.
Yes.
And she was a character that was maybe bordering a little bit on vengeance over justice at the beginning of the movie, inciting a group of women to kill their male oppressors, not because that was the just thing to do, but because they deserved it.
Mm-hmm. And now we watch a man and an alien playing chess.
I'm not saying that Wonder Woman deserves to have what happened to her just happen to her, but it is maybe a little bit of, actions and consequences, and is
Exactly.
It's sad, but I mean, they do a lot of things that make me like that character with her brief screen time, regardless of the fact that she's maybe straddling too far on the opposite direction. This guy, King, what's his face?
Faraday.
Thank you. Faraday is a really interesting and subversive character, of course. because you expect him to just be the evil government guy, and he seems like that early on. There's our classic Manhunter. Now, there's the thing that you almost never see
I love
animated.
that line, by the way. It's okay. Real men wear pants, though.
Real men wear pants. That's exactly what that guy would say in that time period.
What's also really funny is Faraday's played by Phil Morrison.
I know. It's hilarious. Because Phil Morris, if you don't know, was Martian Manhunter in the Justice League cartoons.
No, in Smallville.
Did he? Okay, he voiced somebody else in that show. Who did he? Was he?
He voiced Martian Manhunter eventually in Brave and the Bold, but he didn't voice him in Justice.
That's right. No, I knew he was in Smallville, but I thought no, you're right. I mixed this up because he had a history with the DCAU also. Was he Vandal Savage, or am I thinking of somebody else even?
No, he was Vandal Savage. He was Vandal Savage.
Somebody in that show. Okay.
Yeah.
So
to be fair, the casting for all these different things is tough to track.
Yeah. It's been a while. I'm rusty. So just to finish off my point, I love that Faraday and Martian Manhunter become close friends. You need somebody like that to bring Manhunter back on the side of humanity.
Yes, to show that the person who a lot of people characterize as a villain has a good center to him.
And that center, and that line is really heartfelt and poignant when he says, if I can find the good inside you and the ability to change, then I guess humanity isn't, because that was the last person on Earth that he thought he would see that.
Yes. Can we talk briefly about Flash, just the character of this movie?
Sure. I thought you were just going to go on about the sweater.
Trust me, I want to, but we have more important things to talk about. We'll dedicate a whole podcast to that.
You're right. We only have 75 minutes, so yeah, go ahead.
We can do our own stupid long podcast on this sweater.
On the sweater, yeah.
Anyway, no, I do appreciate, and I find it kind of interesting through both book and movie, how it kind of shows how the Silver Age is emerging, but yet Barry Allen, who is a pivotal part of the Silver Age, comparatively speaking, he has a lesser role compared to Hal and Martian Manhunter. But I still love what this story does with him. Is it shows that he has to have a huge inferiority complex, because you have Superman, a guy who fights aliens and can push the moon with his pinky. Meanwhile, Barry Allen's in Central City stopping a guy dressed as an Eskimo robbing things. Like they're on different playing fields, and it's something you notice through the story is he doesn't think he can match up to do the thing he has to do like everyone else. And so his story here is he actually does join the fight, and he basically saves the day. He's the linchpin of the big thing that stops the center.
Anybody else like that this final climactic action sequence begins at Cape Canaveral?
I think that's awesome.
But also just, and I don't know if this is on purpose, it probably isn't, but just that all these superheroes converge and join forces in a place with the word Cape in the title.
Okay, that has to be on purpose.
That's pretty great.
Yes.
Yeah, well, something else
is feng shuiing. Sorry, he has his hands. It looks like he's in a deep meditation.
Look, we can do a whole stupid, something that I hadn't thought of until you mentioned it is that, remember that Flash is also not government sanctioned?
No, he operates as a vigilante just like
Batman. He got netted earlier. Yeah, and that's really cool, right? That Batman has this much darker approach. Flash is a lot more like Superman, and he's not. Now, I don't know why he refuses to try to become government sanctioned. Is that even dealt with?
You're playing with a man with a bad memory, so
does he just not believe in it? I forget.
I think he's afraid of Iris getting hurt. I know that's a big motivation.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But what I was going to say is, you were comparing, the things that Superman and Wonder Woman deal with on a daily basis and the things that Flash do. If those guys are running around in leotards, doing the small stuff, and they need a superhero to stop them, they need somebody like Flash who can run really super fast to stop them, then there's a real argument to be made there that superheroes are needed.
Yeah.
I just thought of that.
Then again, I think, guys like Captain Cold have an advantage over our normal police, but
yes.
I'm pretty sure they still have a better chance a decent chance at stopping them. But anyway.
Well, then over an island of dinosaurs.
Sorry, I just love this scene of all these things flying at him. And him punching them like they're nothing. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It taps into that little child in me just watching Superman punch dinosaur creatures.
Well,
and then getting blasted to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. Yeah, but not like blasted to the future Kingdom Come. He doesn't mean that. He doesn't wind up in Kingdom Come.
I mean, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
like,
that'd be fun. That'd be an okay follow-up to this story.
Why did that never get at it? I mean, yeah, they'd have some issues trying to figure out how to even, like, whether or not to try and look like Alex Ross, but still, that deserved this treatment.
It's a good story. There should be some talk about. I don't know why we haven't talked about doing Identity Crisis.
Identity Crisis is kind of polarizing, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, but it would make for a cool movie potentially.
Yeah, if you handled it smarter.
So anyway, importantly, Superman gets taken out right at the front. I like what you said, that he's hitting those dinosaurs like they're nothing, and then he's the first guy that gets taken out. It's believable because he doesn't really know what he's up against, and he would be the first person to go to the front. So even though he's taken out because he's not our main character, he's not one of our major protagonists, so they need to get their moments and shine, and this needs to be the conclusion of their character arcs, but also that has to happen to bring, so that all these people actually have to come together, and Superman doesn't just stop the problem all by himself.
Yes. Also, hi Batman. This is supposed to be Adam Strange's scene, but we gave it to you instead.
Oh, really?
His whole subplot Adam Strange's subplot is, do you know his backstory at all?
I don't know anything about him.
Well, his backstory is simple. He's a man from Earth who got caught in a Zeta beam that took him to the planet Ran, where he became a hero there. And the idea in New Frontier is he comes back to Earth, and everyone thinks he's crazy because he's talking about fighting aliens on another planet, and he's in Arkham. And he's in Arkham, and through Bruce Wayne's connections, he gets him out of Arkham and sends him on a mission to go get Ray Palmer and bring us to this scene.
Okay. See, obviously, I remember the beginning of that because I read the front of the book, but I didn't get to this scene.
Well, I just wanted to explain that for other people.
Oh no, I appreciate your explaining it to me. I really like.
I want to bring it up because I do appreciate that the book still uses Bruce Wayne behind the scenes in a way that I like. I like it when stories do that, when they use Bruce Wayne's resources. Technically, publicly, though, obviously they don't know the true reason behind it.
I also really like that Ray Palmer's tech isn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really neat idea. That he's here and integral, and also this happens. This is a thing that Cooke got right that a lot of people miss. Ant-Man, the movie, we never addressed the fact that that being able to shrink things and then they're exploding is still really useful on the battlefield.
Yes.
And this directly says that, which I really appreciate. That technology is still really useful. And we act like if we can't keep the molecular structure of a thing intact, it's just completely useless. Especially to the military.
The military, which will try and find a use for every single thing, regardless of what it does.
Well, that's the first thing, but secondly, isn't that a better weapon?
Yeah, you are the military.
What they want. Well, yeah, I mean, like in a war, your goal is to kill the other people on the other side. So like why are we trying to weaponize it to make or calling it weaponizing to make people smaller so they can't be seen? Like if you have a gun that you can shoot at a person and they will shrink and explode.
You don't even need to send people. Just air out airdrop some garbage and shrink it in the process.
I'm just saying that's a useful weapon. Like inhumane, sure, but all you had to do in that movie was say it's inhumane, so we can't use it. Anyway, this movie. So the dinosaur thing opens the book, and the dinosaurs are made a big surprise reveal at the end of this.
Yes.
Which I think is smart for your third act of the movie.
I think the reason they got rid of the whole opening act with them on Dinosaur Island is it wasn't technically connected to the Justice League. The whole point of that opening bit is it's sort of the last hurrah for war heroes because war comics at that time were starting to wane because we were getting sick and tired of seeing
Good
it.
point. Yeah.
That was the whole point of it. And also to kind of in the book, because like we established, they don't bring up the center as frequently in the book. It's more subtly hinted at as opposed to more broadly out there. And oh, look, Batman's here in his bat plane. If only we had another airplane with a sillier name, like an aeroplane.
We need the aeroplane.
If only the aeroplane would. You know, the aeroplane is in this movie. Anyway.
Also, Batman looks nearly exactly the way he did in Super Friends.
Yep. That was probably there's the aeroplane. Hi, Green Arrow. You don't talk in this movie.
Yeah, you don't get to do anything. Oh, I forgot the aeroplane was in this.
Yeah, that's why I was making those jokes.
Oh.
I'm
sorry.
that subtle, people.
Whoosh, right over my head.
For once, I outsmarted Cat.
Well, I just forgot that it was.
No. I outsmarted you. I declared this victory.
Okay. Anyway. You can have that. It's all yours, pal.
Well,
don't spend it all in one place.
We're at this scene now. I want to talk about this because we're bringing up the opening bit.
Yeah.
In the book, it ends in the most spectacularly ever, and they homage it here because, well, they also felt the way King Faraday dies in the book. Do you want me to tell you how he dies?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
It's basically like an Exorcist kind of deal where he's like, no, don't take him. Take me instead. Take my mind. And the center takes over his mind. And instead, we have the coolest thing ever right now, which is jumping into a T-Rex and blowing himself up.
Yeah, which happens with another soldier like 2 pages into the book.
Not 2 pages. It's like the ending of the losers chapter because that's basically what it is.
Okay, but it's real early.
It's real early in the book itself, and they figured we kind of figured the way it's done in the book just sort of seems a little too what's the word I'm looking for? Too confusing to explain. So why don't we just have him just take that scene we had to cut from the book?
Yeah,
because it's awesome.
No, that's really smart, and like they've earned that. We've come to like Faraday, and again, really limited screen time. They've done a good job with that. Yeah, and he is a military guy, so that's a thing he would think to do. I mean, that's like how Nick Fury would go out trying to blow up a dinosaur.
In this movie, he is basically Nick Fury.
He's Nick Fury, yeah.
And now we're just watching a scene from a Gradius movie. It looks like just.
No, one thing I do wish
what that game is.
I do wish that they had drawn that panel where the shot is reversed from inside the throat of the dinosaur, and you see him, spread his arms out with the grenades. Like, I wish we had that shot.
At least they replicated this bit.
Yeah.
I just love all the freakiness. I love what they do with the voices. I
was going to ask you if that was in the book or not.
The bit where their perception is getting screwed with, that's in the book for sure.
I figured it probably was, but
I can't remember if the bit where they're being attacked by raspberry jam's in it, but it might be. I just wanted to make that joke.
Well, no, I'm glad you said that because the problem is it looks like blood, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to be blood.
I think it is supposed to be blood
because blood looks like that through the rest of this movie, but I don't know if that's blood. So
they could just being attacked by Smuckers. We don't know.
That's true. Yeah. The universe thinks the spaceship is toast.
I mean, since John Hurd plays Ace Morgan, I want to make a Sharknado joke, but I think your jokes are better than mine.
If they're not careful, they will be toast, just not the way that we're talking about.
Exactly.
No, that bit is amazing. I think it's really great that happens as close to the end of this as it does, that we've really built toward that. You've got this obviously heightened comic book pseudoscience stuff throughout the whole thing, and we're blending every genre we can think of, especially every genre that was really prevalent in pulps and serials and, kind of off the beaten path, genre movies at the time. Well, not even off the beaten path stuff. We've got, straight up detective noir stuff in this. So just everything we've blended.
Oh yeah, because I think he tried to get his hands into all kinds of comics at the time.
I mean, even mainstream dramatic romance pictures are kind of represented.
Yeah, with Hal and Carol for sure, and a bit
Hmm.
with Superman and Lois.
Yeah, I mean it's
Even though
it's
they
all
had to
there.
fight because apparently early drafts of this movie they completely cut out Lois.
Yeah, and Darwyn Cooke makes a really big deal in his commentary about how important she is in this, regardless of her limited screen time, and that
Yep.
she's there for the movie more than anything as this kind of, structural thing to hold the thing together. They get a lot of exposition that way that is more natural than it would have been.
Hmm.
So that's important.
And I'm happy everyone supports Flash here because again we're kind of in that day and age where we're almost happy to see any kind of smile in a superhero movie, particularly
Yeah,
a DC
yeah,
one.
characters
And I
actually
just
getting
love that
along.
affirming moment where they said, "We're all behind you, Flash." I know
Yeah,
that's cheesy coming from me, but I just like it.
Duke's not, but Duke wouldn't be happy unless at the end of every superhero movie they all go out for cheeseburgers. That's important. So
It's the way we all unite as a society, Cap. Why is that hard to understand?
he's not like he loves this movie, but it would be a lot better if they all went out for cheeseburgers.
Every movie needs that scene.
It needs that. See, that's why he loves Flash, the TV show, because they're always eating together. And like that some
Everyone
horrible
loves the
thing is going to
iconic
happen.
going to go get cheeseburgers scene from the Flash.
Some horrible thing is gonna happen. Yeah, and that's why every single time you watch the Avengers, you always wait out the credits.
Yes, because that movie does fulfill the criteria of going out to eat after the movie.
That's right. You have to have
It's
that.
one of
every
the
time.
only movies.
Yep, it's very important. It's the only one he likes.
I mean, sure, they say they're shawarmas, but I'm pretty sure one of them tried out a gyro. I love gyros.
Um,
Anyway,
I haven't
a,
I haven't
a
talked
giant
about.
exploding island is here. What we should talk about.
Yeah, maybe so.
It kind of looks like a big hamburger.
Covered in chocolate.
I mean, if you're willing to try that, I am.
Well, there's a lot of it there. I'll split it with you.
Oh, there's plenty. You at home can have some if you want some.
Yeah. This maybe goes without saying, but some of the fun just of this conceptually is going back to the period that some of these characters were created and doing a story from that it's still a period piece, but with the but with a historical through a historical lens.
Yeah, because that was one thing when Cook started this project. He found it really interesting how events in comic book publishing and world world events really intersected in these interesting ways and how it was a frequent thing in this period. And I'm glad he saw a story in that.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
really
mean,
because this story is important to me as a comic book fan.
yeah, and it's a story that has a lot of like familiar ideas and tropes and stuff that are spun in a fresh way, and it doesn't feel outdated being a few years old now, and it doesn't feel outdated being a period piece. Even though it is a period piece, it's a thing that. I wonder if you took this movie back in time and showed it to people in a movie theater, how they would react to it.
That's a very good question.
And that's a question I like to ask sometimes with period pieces. I think it's authentic enough you could almost get away with it, and people would just wonder how you got away with some of this animation.
Mm-hmm. And now the greatest cameo of all time.
Yeah, this seemed a little bit shoehorned into me, but
It kind of is that way in the book too.
oh, is it? Okay, well,
Well, I think there's an alternate scene that
we got to get him
I've
in there
never
somewhere.
actually seen how it goes, but there was an alternate ending of how Aquaman and Superman come in, and I don't know much about it other than I know it exists. I do like that it's just like throw Aquaman in.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze designed that submarine.
It totally looks like it. It's not going to freeze the water. That'd be terrible.
I also want to mention how much I love getting to see that version of Superman's costume in a really serious modern thing.
Oh yeah.
It's super
With
cool.
that old ass with filled in with black like that, really, obviously far before the period where we kind of eventually transitioned to the one we've seen for years.
Well, it's
Decades.
it's also not exactly the Fleischer suit because it still has the traditional Superman symbol around the S. It's not just a triangle.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to remember if the Fleischer one was a triangle or not. Now that I'm thinking about it, but it looks more like the George Reeves suit than anything.
Yeah, I'm sure that had some influence on when either Cook or the animators designed this one particularly.
We had to get a shot of Lex in there just so that we could have him in all purple because he's never in all purple anymore.
Nope.
And I love that.
Now name all the characters.
John F. Kennedy. Oh. You're a couple seconds ahead of me.
Characters in this, Cap. You win.
He's talking right now. Oh, hey, look, it's like Watchmen.
I do love how they use this speech.
Yeah. So you should talk a little bit about John Henry Irons.
Oh yes, because that's a whole subplot that's omitted from the movie, and it's understandable why, because it wouldn't at all have any relevance. But
that is the happiest black canary in the history of black canaries. Sorry.
No, you're right. Anyway, there's a subplot it's a little throughout the movie, and it's mentioned briefly during a TV report, and there's some magazine articles. But there's a character in the book called John Henry, or at least goes by the name John Henry, and his story in the book is he was someone who was just, kidnapped by the KKK, and they tried to hang him, and they fail. And he decides to basically become a hero to fight, like a vigilante to fight them. And he keeps the noose because he ran away with the noose still on his neck after it broke, and he wears it as a badge of honor. And the whole point of it in the book was to kind of address the civil rights movement at the time. But Cook couldn't do that with any established character because there wasn't any notable characters of color, really, let alone of African American descent. And so he basically repurposed John Henry Irons, since he kind of fit with the whole John Henry storybook character or historical character. I can never remember which, if what happened. But it's this really nice, almost one-shot story within the story, and it ends really heartbreakingly.
Yeah, and I like how it uses the lyrics to the old folk song.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Throughout. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about characters that they had at DC, and like the only thing, maybe there's people I'm not thinking of. Like the only person I can think of like pre-90s that isn't like the most obscure thing ever would be like Black Lightning, but that's still like 70s.
That's 70s and plus. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confusing with Black Vulcan. Yeah. Honestly, the closest you can get to it is technically Black Manta, but that was decades before they established that he was a black man.
Honestly, I didn't even know he was a black man.
A lot of people don't, but because you always see him in the goofy room.
Well, and to be fair, I think I have in a couple of different versions seen him take the helmet thing off, and he's not a black man. I don't think he's always depicted that way.
But I think some people either I don't know. It's one of those things.
Maybe people that don't know that don't depict him that way. I don't know. And
I sadly don't blame people for not knowing that.
Well, I always thought that Martian Manhunter always pretended to be a black man, but apparently that's not traditional.
No, I think that only
it is like
started
a modern TV movie thing.
I don't know what started that first. I want to say Smallville might have.
No, well, I thought Justice League and Justice League Unlimited did it.
He is played by. But he never shapeshifted into when he would hide as a human. He would never. He didn't have like a separate human identity, I believe.
It was just a black man who voiced him.
Yeah, I don't think they ever purposely had him. I don't think they ever really had him with an identity. Towards the end of Unlimited, John Jones, leaves the Watchtower, but you don't really see his life.
Well, I just love that that Darwyn Cooke gave us some, had some love for John Henry Irons, because I love that character, and as late as he was created, I always felt like he deserved to be, a mainstream character in with the rest of those guys. He just seems like a like a an iconic DC type character.
Oh yeah, his ongoing lasted a while too, didn't it? Granted, it was the '90s where you had a guaranteed 24 issues anyway, but still.
How old is Cyborg?
Cyborg's at least a '70s character.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, anyway, we fixated on that for a long time. Anything else?
It needed to be mentioned.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention before we bid everybody farewell? We didn't talk really at all about the way they put together the Justice League and the fact that they, again, make it about putting the Justice League together and how that fits in with the JFK speech. But like, how do you feel about that choice versus the book?
I'm okay with it because it works with the structure of a movie.
Yeah.
Again, like I said before, I can't tell you I like one more than the other because I think at the end of the day they have just as much right to be loved for what they are. I'm happy that that this story got such a good adaptation because all good stories deserve this level of quality, regardless of it's like a live action or an animated translation. And I'm kind of glad this movie, because I know this sounds crazy, but Superman, Doomsday, and this movie are kind of important little touchstones in my whole hobby of collecting comics. Without these two movies, you and me probably wouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah. Well,
I've said that before, and I will hold to that.
Yeah, and it's, it's hard not to think that what these things always should have done is at least front load their projects with good comic series that were written by somebody that has a history in animation.
Yeah.
Because then you can bring in the person that worked on it to work on their own material. As I said, the two best of these were done that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least where somebody was brought in that actually wrote the thing and was either worked on the script or worked on storyboards. And
he worked some on the storyboards, and he was a consultant on the script. Basically, Stan Berkowitz would come to him with each draft, and he would throw in his ideas as suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he didn't sit there do it and do it single handedly, and he doesn't obviously have directing or writer credits, but
I know for certain he was working on his run on the Spirit at the same time he was working on this movie.
Well, when you listen to his commentary, he sounds way more involved than I ever would have expected.
Oh yeah,
and I just think that's cool, and I wish that was handled more often, that way. And sometimes what's really interesting looking at this next to Superman Doomsday, because of course this is the one that came out right after that, is that you can tell how much reverence there was for this material and for this time period, and just in how much work was put into making it look authentic. And you hear Cooke say in his commentary, talking about all of the extra miles that were run that you easily could have spent less time on, phoned in more. And then look at Superman Doomsday, and that seemed like a thing that was made completely for the sake of what was popular. That was a commercial choice, and nobody seemed all that excited to be there, comparatively.
Yeah. I will say that.
And that's not to say that just because people are excited, it's always going to come out right. But boy, it helps.
Mm-hmm. And plus, we didn't really. I don't know how to say this, but I'm watching stuff and going through Cooke's work makes me miss him even more.
Yeah.
And because when I heard he was sick initially, that was a punch to the gut. Because he was someone I looked forward to regardless. I looked forward to his Watchmen stuff.
Yeah.
When I had because I'm not a big fan of that book to begin with. And when I heard they were doing the prequel stuff, I'm like, I don't know about that. And then I heard Cooke's doing it, like, well, I'm going to read those for sure. Nothing's going to stop me. And his Watchmen stuff's really the only readable before Watchmen, which is hilarious when you find out that they because it took years to get that project actually going, and they were negotiating with him for all those years. And I will always love the man. He said when he didn't want to ever do anything, he would bring up an outlandish demand he knew they would not agree with, And so, he gave his pitches for the Minutemen and for the Silk Spectre miniseries, thinking they're not going to say okay to this. They instantly said, "We love it, do it." So he had to do it.
Yeah.
I just love that. And plus, he's one of those few creators who just all his work, even if it's kind of dreary, still has a hint of optimism in it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a lot of why people love him so much.
Oh yeah. Because I've heard a lot of heartfelt speeches and write-ups about him where they'll tell you the man he could easily be your worst nightmare, but he was easily your best friend. You could talk to him for 5 minutes and you felt like he was your best friend.
And of course, his art was really unique and instantly iconic and instantly recognizable.
Yeah. Like to a point where he tried to break into comics before, like he tried to break into comics around 95 at the height of the Image boom. And he realized, his style would not work, so he went to animation where he, worked with Bruce Timm on Batman the Animated Series and forged a good career there. And then eventually...
Then we lightened up a little bit.
And we kind of, appreciated that. So if you had an art style close to that, you probably had a better chance then.
Boy, I've always thought it's weird. It was weird that in the 90s, it was all about the artists and writers weren't really talked about as much and weren't revered like they are now. And the art was a lot worse.
It's really funny that Image is kind of at the forefront of both of those ideas.
And then you look at it now, and artists and writers are both equally recognized, and people follow both. And people follow writers and artists as much or more than they follow characters now, and the art's a lot better.
Yep.
And I just think that's really interesting. That once you put the story ahead of it, suddenly we care about the art more. Like the people making the book seem to care more about it actually looking good. I think we also just evolved and changed what that meant, and it wasn't about it just being shocking, like it was an edgy, whatever that means. As it was. It
sounds like
90s.
you're using pull quotes when a bad action movie comes out and they're trying to find anything that sounds remotely positive to put into the commercial.
Yeah, you take completely out of context out of the middle of a sentence. It's edgy, shocking, bizarre,
fun thrill ride,
Facebook. What? Well, anyway, everybody, thanks always for listening. Hope you enjoyed our commentary. And Duke, thanks a lot for coming and doing this with me and suggesting this. I wanted to make sure that we celebrated Darwyn Cooke. Really super sad that he's not with us anymore. And I'm glad that we took a fine-tooth comb to this.
Mm-hmm. And now we go back to our normal nonsense.
And we'll see you again in a couple weeks with some more nonsense. Duke and I have been in the middle, if you're not aware of the Fantastic Four
Which a lot of people
movies,
aren't, according to that Jonah Hex video I did.
We've done the first 2 Fantastic Four movies, and we're right smack dab in the middle. We've got 2 more left, and we'll do Rise of the Silver Surfer for you here in just the next couple of weeks. We'll see you again next time. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Duke.
Thanks a lot for listening.